Digital and Branding Workshop for Ensemble Evolution, which is a collaboration between the International Contemporary Ensemble and the New Schools College of Performing Arts. My name is Jennifer Kessler. I'm the Executive Director of the International Contemporary Ensemble, and I am very excited to welcome our next facilitator. Solon Mitchell II is a professional flutist, an arts entrepreneur, educator, and arts advocate in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. He has received numerous awards as a flutist and supports arts organizations and artists as the owner and founder of M3 Mitchell Media and Marketing. He offers tailored services, including photography, videography, and digital media marketing. And clients include Americans for the Arts, the Bel Air Arts and Entertainment District, City Lit Project, and many, many more. He's also an active arts advocate in the Washington, D.C. area, serving as a board member of the Arts Administrators of Color Network, among many other organizations. So it is my great pleasure to welcome Solon Mitchell II to lead us through digital branding and marketing.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the wonderful introduction. I want to thank the International Contemporary Ensemble team and the New School College of Performing Arts for this great opportunity. Good morning, everyone. So it's just great to share time in virtual space, especially with my fellow artists. I checked out your bios and your descriptions on the website, and you all have such impressive and innovative backgrounds. And truly, you all have such wonderful brands and so much to offer to the world through your art. To be honest, I'm following a tough act from yesterday's wonderful leadership, advocacy, and allyship in the arts panel through a racial justice lens. And I'm so glad that much of this year's summer intensive is framed through anti-racism and racial justice. So we have plenty of content to cover over the next hour. So I'm going to move just a little fast, but no worries, because the slides will be shared in the chat. My email will also be on the slides in case you have any questions. But I encourage you to share any questions, thoughts that you have throughout the presentation, because there will be time for a short Q&A. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right, so yes, this is branding and digital marketing for musicians. And you already heard a quick intro about myself. Pretty much in a nutshell, I am an individual artist. I'm working on my DMA in flute performance. I'm a family man, and I am an arts entrepreneur, and I'm glad to be speaking with you today. So with my business, M3 Mitchell Media and Marketing, it's been around for about 5 years now, and really what we focus on is we want to empower the arts ecosystem, specifically individual artists, but also organizations, to be self-sustained through media production and marketing consulting in the arts for their success. A brief overview for today. We're going to talk about, first of all, yourself first. We're going to talk about getting outside of yourself. And then we'll cover a few of the main digital channels that you can then present yourself in your authentic way to your target audiences. So just a brief definition as far as branding. Really, branding is what your reputation is to everyone who you meet. It's a summation of all of your actions that you do both online and offline. And another way to frame it is really self-presentation, which encyclopedia.com defines as the process by which individuals represent themselves to the social world. Taking that a little further, it's about positioning yourself the way that you want to be seen to your target audience through unique, authentic, relatable content that can lead to long-lasting opportunities, and that's both financial and otherwise. By intentionally and authentically designing who you are and how you project yourself, you inform your ideal customers and partners about your unique personality, your perspective, and your passion within your art. So, when you want to think about yourself and yourself as a brand, there are some questions that you want to make sure that you ask yourself often, especially when you're going to be putting yourself out there for applications, for presentations, and just for general self-reflection. Always, it's important to know what your goals are for success, specifically in the arts. Think about what success would look like for you and what would be the milestones and benchmarks on a short-term and a long-term scale. What are your values? And these basically aren't just nouns, but really they're action verbs. So perhaps you want to cultivate a unique audience. Perhaps you want to really tell the story about a particular marginalized culture or group of individuals through your art. Perhaps your values is about building community and about making sure that they know one another and that they can share the resources that they have. So always think about what your values are as an individual artist, and then once you have your goals and values, everything can spring forth from that. In marketing, there's a term called a SWOT analysis. And really that's simply just your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And so opportunities is self-explanatory. That's how can you be able to sustain yourself in your business. And then threats can be anything that can threaten your business. And that includes obviously competition from others, but it also can include anything that might disrupt your marketplace, perhaps changing trends and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of what's happening in the world so that you don't fall behind, especially right now and always when it comes to racial injustice and social justice. Think about your why again in the arts, because when it comes to branding and when it comes to marketing, your reason for being in the arts is going to be your unique solution to someone's problem. Your product is the art, and that will be someone's solution to their problem of how they can exist in this world. And in this time of digital innovation, that sums up your how. How are you going to go about differentiating yourself? And so think about these 5 questions always whenever you're going to start a new project or you're taking the summer to sort of reflect on who you are. The biggest asset or collateral when it comes to branding in the written form is the artist statement. And after working at a local arts agency, working for a state arts agency, and doing a number of my own grant applications, I have to say that for every musician and artist in general, having that artist statement piece and having it solid and refined is so important and will go a long way for whatever you're applying to do, whether it's, again, grants, schools, residencies, calls for art, across the whole spectrum. It's truly important that you have a refined artist statement. And in short, first of all, I would highly encourage you to ask your friends and your colleagues and what their artist statements are and get a general sense of what they look like, specifically within your exact discipline, because even within music, we have our own specific niches as far as composition and different genres within music. But across the board, it's all about short storytelling, about 1 page or so. You want to have a creative, engaging visual document. Make sure that it's clear and that it's concise. And as you work on it, make sure that you're always seeking feedback often throughout the entire process, from the initial brainstorming phases to the drafts and the ultimate finished version, which should always change over time as you change as an artist and your environment changes. The essential elements. All right, so you want to make sure that your personality shines through. This is not a one-size-fits-all document. It's not formulaic at all. You want to make sure that your personality and your unique perspective to the art world and your own way of approaching the art comes through. Make sure it's honest and authentic and shows your humanity. Include your artistic process when you're talking about your artist statement. The bio is sort of how you came to the art and how it's kept you inspired, but your artistic process is truly important because you want to be able to show whoever's reading your artistic statement, you want to be able to show them why the art has inspired you, what influences have come to make you who you are today, and also common elements and common themes throughout your work, whether you focus on a particular region of composers or a region of music making, or you focus on a particular historical era. or perhaps it happens to be a particular social justice element, make sure that that always comes through and that's very clear to the audience reading your statement. And last but not least, we want to know what your purpose is, again, going back to your why, and show your passion. Similar to arts organizations who have a mission and a vision statement, for individual artists, your artist statement should clearly communicate the world that you are hoping to help to create and the world that you want to see through your own change through your art, and show the impact that you're working to do each and every day through your art form. So that's just a quick run through about the artist statement, which if you already have one, great. I highly recommend that you revise that, send that over to some friends for their review, see what they think. And again, keep it short and keep it relevant to who you are in this current moment. Now, we talked about written collateral, but now so much of what branding is and what we're used to thinking about when we think of traditional branding is the visual element. And whether you work at an organization or you're thinking about your own brand as an artist, your own visual identity is super crucial, and it has to be super intentional so that folks get a consistent and authentic view of yourself every time that you show up. It very much has to do with the psychology of how visual elements are communicated across. And really, the visual identity comes down to the style guide. And some of the main aspects when it comes to the style guide are things such as colors, elements and icons, typography or fonts, and also tone of voice, which goes back to the artist statement. So all these main elements should be communicated in your your visual style guide. And I wanted to include some examples here because I work at the University of Maryland Graduate School, and together we've put together our own brand style guide. And as you see here on the left, we have our main colors that form our color palette. And then on the right-hand side, you see some of the graphic design elements that we've placed together. And they all have common themes, and they're all very intentional, and they all stay consistent while still being unique. Again, there's still unique fonts throughout, the logos, the colors, and some of them include photographic elements as such. I also work as a board member with the Arts Administrators of Color Network, and they have a wonderful example also of a style guide, just so that you can see another way to use it. As you see here, the color palette on the left, and then the examples on the right to apply the style guide. It really makes your limited time much more efficient when you have something that you can glean from and that you can use as your foundational element to your brand. And everything that you create, whether it be your logos, business cards, your website format, your email newsletters, social ads, general social posts, they all should fall and glean from this foundational visual style guide. Now you may be thinking, okay, how do I go about creating my own style guide? Where do I even start? If you are completely new to thinking about graphic design, I highly recommend that you check out Canva. I'm sure that you've heard it being floated around in the past, and perhaps you've already used it. But I dropped some links here in the slide for you to go ahead and check about how to think about creating your own color palette. And it's full of examples to get you inspired. And the great thing about it is you're not locked into any visual brand style guide, but truly take the time to be intentional about where you want to start so that you don't have to go back and change things around. And if you're looking to be a little bit more tech savvy, I highly recommend that you take the summer to dive much more into the Adobe Creative Cloud, especially Photoshop and Illustrator. That will give you a good foundation to be able to be a lot more customizable and flexible with how you create your own brand elements. And also, obviously, you can also reach out to friends who are graphic designers and go down that route as well. Just another example of using your visual brand's style guide. On the right-hand side is Canva, and for one of my presentations for Arts Fairfax, which is in Virginia, a local arts agency, I literally took their logo and showed how they could use their logo to then create a Facebook Frame Studio, which was a way that then they can engage their audiences to show brand ambassador and brand loyalty to who they are. So there are plenty of applications for yourself, but also for the audiences that you support when you actually stick to a visual brand guide. All right, so the other aspect of your visual identity also doesn't just come from graphic design, but it also comes from photography and videography. And on the left-hand and right-hand side, I just outlined numerous ways and numerous applications and elements that can come from these two visual mediums. If you don't already have headshots, obviously that's important. You want to be able to show the behind the scenes and really collect those archives of your work. You want to be able to especially use photography and videography that previews your events and also wraps up your events. And the great thing is this will be great supplemental material for, again, when you apply for grants and other opportunities that exist in the world. So also, because we're in this COVID-19 era, it's a great time now more than ever to really become your own videographer and to find ways of being able to capture and curate who you are from your own webcam or your own camera. So take advantage of the time that you have now to be able to figure out how you can present your own self through promo videos, and interviews of yourself and things of that sort. Also, take advantage of instructional videos that show who you are and how you can educate your audiences. Just to name a few, when it comes to photography and videography, especially video, more than 70% of social media content is consumed through video, especially now when we're all stuck at home. So if you haven't already taken the time to invest in your own learning, I recommend you can either start if you're brand new to video with something like iMovie, or you can go to the next step with Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. Just take the time to start learning and watching tutorials so that you can use it to create your own virtual videos, just so that you can be a bit more autonomous instead of relying on outside contractors. A cool app that you can use as well is Adobe Rush. It allows you to sync projects that you do between your phone and your computer when you're busy on the go. Same thing with Adobe Spark. It's a great way for you to take that brand style guide that you have created and then use that to create quick social graphics that showcase who you are. And if you're looking to get some gear, on the right-hand side, I'm a huge fan of B&H Photo, which is located right in New York City. It's great for you to get equipment to either enhance your own mobile phone, or for you to get external equipment like DSLR cameras and external recorders. So important for us as musicians as we're capturing our work and we're stuck at home especially and need to create high quality content. So I'm gonna say this a few times throughout the presentation about how important it is to collect and document everything that you do. It needs to be a habit, it needs to be a mindset, it needs to be a lifestyle. You just have to be in just the normal vein. It has to be second nature that whenever you do something, whether you present something, whether you are a co-presenter, whether you're performing, be sure that you collect those flyers, those reviews, those digital reviews. All of it is so important so that you have all of this word of mouth marketing that you can rely on to include on all of your digital placements like your website, your emails and such. All right, so now it's time to get out of your own way now. When you have a sense of who you are and what you can offer and what you can bring, now it's important to think about the outside world and those target audiences that you want to reach. So both now and going forward, think about these questions when you want to think about audience engagement or new projects that you want to put together. So ask yourself, for example, when it comes to equity, do your audiences reflect today's society, especially your community, in a fair, just, and respectful manner? Regarding inclusion, are you ready to embrace others who aren't like you and present resonant and relevant material with them? With diversity, are you celebrating and tracking individual differences across race, gender, age, lifestyle, geographic politics, etc. And then regarding access, are you actually aware of and trying to remove the barriers that keep folks from attending your audiences? Now, this can be monetary, this can be logistics as far as transportation, but it also very much can be mindset and analyzing the psychographics or the behaviors of folks. Sometimes they may not feel that they belong there and that perhaps the venue that you've chosen or the particular art that you're presenting is only for a select group of people. And so keeping these things in mind, you will have a sense of the work that you need to do on the front end before we even get to the art. Because the art itself is beautiful, we all know that, but we have to deal with the barriers that exist. We have to deal with the historical marginalization that has existed that keeps our art away from everyone, because truly the art is for all of us. So when you're getting out of yourself, it's important to do a couple things, especially when you think about building audiences. First and foremost, follow the trends, follow the industry. See what's out there in the news, especially right now, regarding racial injustice and the history of marginalization in the arts. Follow the trends in seeing what folks are speaking of and some of the actions that folks are presenting for academic institutions, for freelancers, and the industry in general. Follow the industry to see what audience members are sticking to and what their behaviors are, because you don't want to do something that sounds great to you, but it doesn't resonate with what everyone else is doing today. Think about your audience personas. Think about 3 or more of these groups, and this includes their demographics, such as race, class, their background, but then also, again, think about their psychographics. What drives them to come to your performance or not come to your performance? And when you think about that, you can have a sense of what you may need to do, again, to help change that on your end. When we think of audience research, that can seem a little intimidating and can seem very broad and something that requires a huge budget to do. But honestly, when you're doing qualitative or quantitative research, it can start as something as really at the core, it's just asking intentional questions or questions that need answering. And you can start by doing that even just today. Qualitatively, you can have informal interviews with people who you respect, whose opinions matter to you. You can also send out quick little surveys or polls across your social channels regarding work that you're working on or potential directions and ideas that you want to pursue. And that data can help guide you and inform you with what you should do next that will resonate with folks, instead of just going off of your own instinct and guessing. When we want to think about audience engagement, really the core tenets are just be open and be a guest when you want to reach folks. For example, when I, coming out of during my master's degree in flute performance, I wanted to expand my horizons beyond Western classical music. I wanted to learn more about Brazilian music, and particularly choro music, which has a huge influence in Brazil, and the flute is at the heart of that ensemble. And so rather than me simply picking some pieces and just putting on a recital, instead, I was a guest and I went to the jam sessions around Washington, D.C. I met a lot of the Brazilian musicians. I learned from them. I hung out with them and simply wanted to be a part of their culture. I took myself out of the equation. It was not centering my institutional training and knowledge and bringing that to them. I simply wanted to see where their perspective was and just immerse myself in what they were about. And then from there, I could have a much more authentic and cultural appreciation of what I was doing. Next, audience engagement is a long-term process. It doesn't happen overnight at all. To build relationships takes time and it takes effort and it takes honesty. And it does take money. You're going to take, when you're going to invest the money to go to these performances, to be able to honestly just spend time with them, that's time away from other pursuits. But it's honestly well worth it if you want to be able to connect with audiences that aren't what you're used to, that aren't what you grew up being around, specifically in classical music. You want to think about your product, being the art, as a 360-degree experience. From the moment that you come up with an idea, from the moment that you send out that first flyer, that's that first promotional effort, to the sound check, to the rehearsals, to the performance, to the post-show talk or reception, you want to really think about the audience and their perspective first and foremost. How can they truly get a full educational experience, a full entertaining experience, and really feel like that they were enlightened and gathered something new that can, again, brighten up their life. So behind the scene content is a great way to do that. Giving teaser content, doing educational experiences as well, can just give people that full experience rather than simply only showing up to the show and that being it as far as their experience. Collaboration is crucial when it comes to doing audience engagement. You are not alone when it comes to being able to bring the art to much more diverse audiences. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you align yourself and that you partner with individuals and organizations in your community. And that can be local arts agencies, that can be fellow artists, that can be community centers. There are so many options. It can be churches, hospitals, schools. There's so many ways for you to truly be a member of your own community, rather than simply putting on a performance and expecting folks to simply show up. You got to build those long-term mutually beneficial partnerships and relationships over time. And so honestly, one way to get started is just make a list of who you think in your community that you could partner with for whatever project that you're working on. And it's not a one-time thing. It should be truly the essence of who you are, and you should be truly connected whenever possible. Go support their shows, go to them, and don't always expect them to come to you. So again, it's all about guided actions, following the data, rather than going off of a hunch or how things have, quote, always been. All right, so social media strategy. These are the main elements that you want to think about in your social media strategy. There's a lot of flashy new technologies. There's a lot of bells and whistles out there that can seem very impressive. But at the core of a social media strategy, it comes down to these elements: goals, monitoring, being organized, figuring out how you're going to post, what does your content look like, what relationships are you building, and how are you being flexible and nimble with our current marketplace. So again, going back to audience research, very much that will influence how you think about what goals that you're going to have. So for example, the NEA had a report that followed the motivations and barriers for arts audiences for both visual arts and performing arts. And you can see here on the right-hand side, a lot of the things that came for barriers for folks was time and cost and access, and all the way to a sense of belonging. And so when you know what the problem is up front, then you can think about how you can go about solving this. For example, if time is a barrier, then perhaps, especially now with COVID-19, you want to have some of your content, not all of it, but some of your content can be on demand on Facebook, for example, or YouTube, so that you give folks multiple means and times to be able to come and experience what you do. That being said, you also can use time as a barrier to think about and find out what is the best time for you to do your actual live show that is a one-time only event, that is ticketed so that you sustain your business, but also at the same time, you're not alienating your audiences who maybe can't come to the unreasonable time that you're proposing. If you haven't heard of SMART goals before, be sure to use that in your strategic thinking. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So if you want to put on a show, think about what it actually looks like. Think about how can folks actually access it. Is it relevant to what's happening right now? Or is it existing in a vacuum, and is it perhaps even tone deaf? And then time-based, think about how long is it going to take you to prepare for the show. Think about all of the resources, financial and otherwise, that it's going to take. And when when you go about sharing social content, there is a marketing term from a book called Permission Marketing by Seth Godin, and he has what's called a 70-30 rule. And that comes down to thinking about when you're promoting or when you're posting your content, think of the ratio following more of a 70% of your content is going to be serviceable to the field. It's going to strictly provide educational content to whoever's following you. And then just 30% of what you post should be the promotional aspect of coming to the show, coming to the gig, coming to actually purchase perhaps your merchandise or your recordings, things of that sort, so that folks see you as a thought leader and someone that they can gain from rather than simply only being sold to. And really, everything that you post should follow this term in marketing called ED. It should either educate, demonstrate, inform, entertain, or it could do any of those four. But also think about how your content can inspire those who is part of your audience. Make your art experience worth their time. Give them something to talk about. Make it worth their time, because we have so much content floating around, and truly the scarcest thing right now is time. All right, so you can monitor the industry again by following the art trends, following what's happening in politics, economics, social cultural trends, technology. And the best way to do that, some sources, is using Facebook pages and groups. Have your top pages that you follow and that you have as your see first pages, and then have your actual Facebook groups that you can build community and find interesting news and trends and find ways that can keep you on top of the pulse of what's happening in the industry. On Twitter, you can create curated lists, really, which are curated news feeds that include a specific number of Twitter handles that you want to follow. That way you can maximize your time and still be in the know. Obviously, there's numerous arts publications and journalists that you can follow. Your own local organizations is great. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can post your own surveys and polls, and you can make your own interviews with folks, either in person, via Zoom, or via DMs, depending on who it is. And again, that can give you information that will help you. Competitive analysis is truly about thinking about what can you learn from your competition, rather than simply having them in their lane and you staying in yours. Honestly, take a look and see what are they doing that can be beneficial to your own practice and your own business strategies. You can also look to see how audiences are spending their dollars. That can help you to see, perhaps rather than me always staying in my own venue, if I see folks going to a particular venue, perhaps I can find a way to partner with organizations in that area, in that location, so then I'm meeting the audience where they are, and while they are spending their discretionary dollars on other leisure activities, they can also enjoy some wonderful art. So find ways to partner and align whenever possible. And always take into account what price structures that you're putting in place, what is the appeal of your art, what are its strengths and weaknesses, and how are you building your credibility and authority. So when you want to do social content, it's very important to stay organized and not just post on a random whim. And a lot of ways to do that is to build your own editorial calendar, and that keeps you organized. It gives you a sense of what you've shared before and what you're going to share in the future. You can follow your frequency and consistency, have a sense of where you're going to actually post this content and where your audience lives. And it's super important because we are artists, and first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're spending our time being creative. It's super important that you document these processes when you're doing all of this digital marketing. Track your time, track to see what efforts are paying off, and track the steps. It will make it'll make everything that you do more efficient and more effective, and you can see what is proving the best ROI or return on investment. And it's great to really maximize word of mouth marketing, especially through website traffic and reviews on your Facebook pages and your LinkedIn pages. That's a great way to be able to make sure that you're maximizing your time and letting other folks talk about you. One quick little tool, if you don't use Linktree, you probably have seen it. And so I encourage folks to use it, especially on platforms such as Instagram and Twitter that only allow for you to use one link for folks to come to your profile. And so, for example, this is my LinkedIn. And the great thing is, rather than, again, only having one link, you can maximize it and allow folks to see you and to see what you offer on numerous levels. So rather than only having a link to your website, you can allow folks to stay within the platform, especially within Instagram, and they can simply see various things in ways that they can engage with you. You can show off new videos that you have, blog articles, events that are coming up, and the great thing is you can even gather their own information via text or via email sign up. So you're offering great content. They're providing you with their information, which you can then build that audience and nurture them over time. So these are just quick little examples of what an editorial calendar could look like. You could use Google Calendar, you could use a spreadsheet. You also could use a tool called Airtable, which is basically just a spreadsheet on steroids. It's just much more dynamic and allows you to drag and drop and create cool views, including calendar views, and you can collaborate with others. So check it out if you haven't heard of it before and see if it helps you with your own workflow. All right, so now when it comes to posting, again, automation is really what you want to aim for. Obviously, things happen and sometimes you have to post in the moment, but when you have content that you already know is coming up ahead of time, you already know you have an album coming up, you have content that you want to share, be able to think about structurally and intentionally how and when you're going to share that. So thinking about the time of day, the day of the week, frequency, what it's going to actually look like per each channel is important, because every channel across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., they have a particular way that you want to compose your content to look. You don't want to use a one-size-fits-all with your content. Instagram is better for short-form videos, for example. Twitter can be text-only, newsworthy information. Facebook can be a mix of your long-term content and your short-term, depending on how your audience resonates with it. And one tool that you can use is Buffer. It's a great scheduling platform that has wonderful tools. It's very user-friendly and intuitive, and it allows you to plan your content ahead of time so you can set it and forget it, as they say. It has a blog, it has a podcast, it has a great app, and you can check out the link to learn more of its resources to help make your social posting much more fun and efficient. So the content itself, again, make sure that it's following the ED plus Inspire goals. Make sure that it falls within one of those purposes. It should be authentic, timely, relevant, consistent. So again, don't exist in a vacuum. Make sure that it's resonating with what's happening in the world around you. Also, none of these digital media platforms exist by themselves. It should truly be an omni-channel marketing strategy that you use where they all connect to each other. So connect your social to your website, connect it to the emails that you send, which we'll talk about shortly. Think about the messaging. Again, this goes back to your brand style guide, the brand kit, everything, including messaging, voice, tone, the style. Make sure that it's truly within your own voice and don't copy someone else's, but keep it in the same tone of voice that you would convey in person. And truly, it's storytelling. Again, I talked about from the idea conception to all the way to the post-show events and afterwards. You want to make sure that you guide people through your process as an artist, because I think now more than ever, folks love to see the actual nuts and bolts and the behind the scenes of what it takes to put the end product together. And then to save your time, always repurpose. Now, what is repurposing? Here's an example. Let's say that you conduct a video interview of a colleague or a expert leader, or someone interviews you. And let's say that lasts for about 20, 30 minutes. Okay, so that whole long-term video can exist on YouTube or Facebook, for example. But then you can trim down that video to maybe some of the highlights to Instagram, either within the feed for 1 minute or within the other tools to, if you want to go longer form. You can also do, Instagram TV. You can also do a long podcast, and Buzzsprout, if you're in the area of doing podcasts already, then you probably have heard of Buzzsprout. But if you're looking to get into podcasting, you can use Buzzsprout as a hosting platform that then sends out your podcast to Apple, Spotify, Google, the main players. You can also create audio content into short animated audio videos. And there's a platform called wave.co that I'm going to speak about, but you also could use Adobe After Effects if you're very tech savvy in that space. You can break down that video interview into a blog article, put it on LinkedIn, build your thought leadership. You can also use other platforms like Medium and putting it directly onto your website, or both. It's great for it to live in more than one place. You can use short quotable graphics, again with Canva or Photoshop. And then you can also, if it gets picked up by the news, great. You can use that directly. You can use that news source directly on all of your channels. Another method is you could simply go live on Instagram first, which is seeing a 70% boost in live video. And then you could take that live video and then chop it up into the same process above. So I mentioned wave.co, and it's a way that if you either are doing podcasting or you simply have audio content, you can take it, and wave.co will allow you to make it seem a little bit more engaging than simply an audio link on your SoundCloud. So let's see if this works. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear the audio because I may not have set that up, but basically what's happening is while the audio is being played, you have a waveform, you can include images, and you can also have a little quick duration. So it's, especially if you want to post this on Instagram or Twitter, for example, it's a lot more engaging fashion, and you can tell much more of a story than simply through an audio link. All right, another place for you to find trends and tactics is on capacityinteractive.com. They have a great resource that you should definitely check out called Stellar Social Content. Across disciplines, it shows you what folks are doing across the industry, and it can get you inspired. They explain why it's stellar. They talk about the copy, they talk about the visual elements, and they just say why it's innovative and why it's relevant to the time, especially for us being at home during COVID. Again, social media marketing, at the core of it is building relationships that can turn into opportunities in the future. Your brand is a promise to your audience, so you want to make sure that you establish that trust and make sure that it's mutually beneficial. Some strategies that you can use that you probably already do, but now you can realize that there's strategy behind it. You can follow hashtags, you can join groups across the platforms. You can build friend lists as well, just so that you can be able to make sure that you're maximizing your time with who you want to be connected to. Now, we're quickly going to go over just some other digital strategies, and I'm just going to talk about some of the best practices. And some of this will be my own personal preferences, but they are backed up by data. So I encourage you to check out some of these on your own and make the decision for yourself and what makes sense for you during your own journey. So regarding the website, when you're going to choose a domain, there's a lot of ways to do it, but I would say try to keep it as simple as you can. If you simply can make it your first name, last name.com, do that. If it's already taken up, then maybe you simply add first name, last name, your instrument, first name, last name, music. This way you can keep it unique and brandable, easy to type. And again, folks will already know and get used to it rather than first name, last name.wixsite.com or anything longer. So try to keep it nice and short and sweet and make it brandable to you. When it comes to web hosting and website builders, a lot of people choose either between Squarespace on the right, or they do WordPress through a web hosting platform like Bluehost. I'm a huge fan, and I'm biased, not just biased, but also I've done research when it comes to seeing that Bluehost and using WordPress .org, not .com, is really the best way if you want to be able to have a scalable option that can serve you in the future. It's more affordable. It has thousands of plugins and integrations. It'll allow you to simply take your website a lot further than Squarespace. Squarespace is great when you're just getting started because it's very hassle-free. However, it's a little bit more expensive, though the platform and the websites templates that they give you do look very good and are mobile friendly and have good design. However, they're limited, especially when you want to get into monetization and e-commerce. When you want to get to the space of selling content such as recordings, uh, uh, music publishing, things of that sort, you'll have limited options when it comes to Squarespace. Both of them give you a free domain for a year, but Bluehost gives you an automatic email address that you can coordinate with either Microsoft or G Suite. Squarespace, you have to use a different email support system, so you have to do two different things rather than keeping it all in-house with Bluehost and WordPress.org. And the great thing about WordPress.org is more than 32% of websites on the web use WordPress. If you are using Squarespace, nothing wrong with that. If it works for you currently where you're at, that's fine. If you find in time that there's more that you want to do and there's more that you want your website to do for you, and you want to pivot from Squarespace to WordPress, then this link here at the bottom will give you all the steps to go about that. So again, we talked about some website builders. You want to think about the themes and the content and all that great stuff. I highly recommend using a builder such as Divi by Elegant Themes. It's a great drag and drop process that truly is industry standard, and it'll allow you to get everything that you need to get on your website. If you haven't done so, create your own website navigation structure. It'll allow you to, before you even take your mouse to your computer and you start building, you'll already have a vision for what you want the website to do and how it'll best serve you. Obviously, some of the most important aspects that you will see when you look at other musician websites, especially professionals, is it'll have the about, it'll have content or contact, but it'll also have their recordings, it'll have their press kit with their high-res photos and press clippings if you have any. And it's just a great way for you to show who you are and what you're up to. You can also embed your blog there as well to be able to keep track of news and share your thoughts. And then from there, you can create sub-menu categories and all that great stuff. Again, it's all about documentation. If you have the content to put on the website in the first place, you're in a much better place than having to try to scrounge around and grab a photo or a recording here and there. So be organized with your content. It'll truly serve you in the future. Goes without saying, make sure that you connect your Google Analytics to your website, no matter if you use Squarespace or WordPress. This way you can check on a weekly or bi-weekly basis about what pages are being viewed the most, where your users are coming from, and that way you can see perhaps maybe a lot of your folks are coming from a particular social channel, for example, then you'll know to really double down on that particular social media platform to best keep folks coming to your website and building that traffic and building really that credibility for what you do. All right, so finally, we're gonna talk about email marketing. You may use Constant Contact, MailChimp, or another platform. That's fine, I use MailChimp. But really the benefits I find beyond the price is you get to be able to see with open rates and click rates, you can see how audiences are actually following your emails and if particular aspects of your emails are being useful and valuable. You can find what days of the week it's best to share it. You can personalize the messages to particular segments instead of blasting a one-size-fits-all message. It's a great, easy drag and drop design and templates. You can integrate it with all of your other digital media marketing platforms. And it's a great way to be able to add sign-up forms to your social platforms and to your website. Again, think about the omni-channel approach and always be organized with that editorial calendar. If you haven't done so before, a quick little exercise you could do just simply on a piece of paper is just think about what your email would look like. Starting with the subject line, which is hugely important, and then think about the design, think about how it ends, and think about sort of maybe the main 3 sections that are going to be involved. What is the call to action? What are you actually driving the audience reading your newsletter to do? Is it perhaps to donate? Is it perhaps to attend a virtual event? And then again, keeping that whole brand in mind, make sure that you have those social media links to make sure folks can follow you and find you across the digital presence. Again, so build your own first email. Honestly, and if you already have MailChimp and things like that, you know, try sending your first email and just seeing how it goes. None of this has to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be paralysis by analysis. Simply try, experiment with any of this stuff and see how it goes, and it'll all be unique for each of you in your own particular journey. Build the list. Make sure that you always collect those names and email addresses whenever possible, because then that is your tribe that you could speak to. Again, have one major call to action, link it between your email and your website, and finally, be willing to adjust your parameters. Again, it's all about being flexible and being nimble based off of what the data tells you and how audiences are actually receiving your content. So that was a lot, I know, but with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have regarding this overall branding and digital marketing journey. So let's see, I believe that, okay, great. So I see that a lot of these, links have been dropped in the chat, which is awesome. Let's see if I can find some questions that folks may have. All right, so as of right now, I'm not seeing any questions, but I'm here to help. So if there's any questions about any of what was discussed during the presentation, let me know. Honestly, it's a journey, and again, your most important, you want to make sure that you're maximizing your time to be a creative, and I truly understand that, and I feel you. And so the best thing to do is simply to pick one or a few things regarding digital marketing and take your time, try it, see how it goes, revise. It's always an experiment. And often a lot of it just needs to become a part of your lifestyle. You have to build time into your calendar, into your Google Calendar, just like you build time for your practice routine and your lessons, things like that. Just make sure that it becomes a normal part of your everyday experience, because you are a business, not just a musician, not just someone who performs, but you also need to make sure that you're protecting your time and your intellectual property and all that you stand for. All right, cool. So, all right, Kimia asks, no, let's see. All right, so Yuma, okay, how do you deal with social media burnout when using these tools? Great, that is an awesome question, Yuma. So honestly, you know, I'm very intentional and strategic about when I'm gonna hop on social media simply just to let it wash over me, simply just for pleasure. But then I'm very intentional of knowing, okay, I have 30 minutes or I have an hour or whatever. I'm gonna do these particular tasks on social media that are gonna help build my brand, that's gonna help promote whatever content that I have going on, that's gonna be going into a particular Facebook group and getting some knowledge for the day or for the week, being able to connect with a particular group of individuals. And that way, when I go on social media, I know exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm not allowing myself to get distracted and swept away with the rest of the noise. And then I leave it and I go on with the rest of my day. Regarding, you know, the burnout, again, like give yourself a specified time to actually be on the platform. Don't allow yourself to spend hours and hours. Make sure that even when you're doing it strategically, make sure that you take breaks and make sure that you have plenty of other outlets so that you can continue your creative flow. I think, just getting sucked into the news feed is how we end up sucking a lot of our time and wasting a lot of our time, but always be intentional and strategic with how you're going to enjoy the platform. All right, so how do you take, okay, cool. So how do you take the first steps to work as a consultant? I quit my day job as an arts presenter in Michigan to focus on performing, but would love to stay involved with this and have it as an income resource. And this okay, great. This is from Anik. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So Anik, for me, I highly recommend, since I haven't said this already, every musician specifically, and all artists, you should consider your career as a portfolio career, and you should always be looking for multiple streams of income. Gone are the days when you can rely completely on just performing, or especially, in the classical world, just simply being in a symphony orchestra and that giving you all the income that you need. Obviously, there's always teaching and getting value and fulfillment out of that, but more than likely, you have something to offer in addition to your art, because you have a unique perspective that you bring to it. And you probably have built skills over time, perhaps as a GA in school, perhaps doing day jobs to pay for the bills, to pay for tuition at schools, or to pay for training, things of that sort. So utilize those unique skills and tools that you've built over time. Don't view them as something just simply on the side that is just sort of secondary, but use it as a way to not only provide additional income, but to really create your brand, because then people will know you as the musician who also does this. And then that way you can create a unique place for yourself in the marketplace. Now, for first steps to work as a consultant to get started, just start very small. Think about who your potential clients could be, and think about what you could serve them. Again, going all the way back to the beginning, what is a unique solution to their problem? Reach out to them, see what they would pay for that, and get those conversations going. And that's really your best step, and you can start to build a rough plan from there. Cool. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Okay. You asked favorite budget-friendly DSLR camera. I'm a Canon person. I'm biased, but Canon or Nikon will serve you well. I think I can speak more to Canon side. Their Mark cameras are great. If a budget-friendly option, I would say try to go for the Mark III. It'll just give you a long bang for your buck. But definitely check out B&H Photo and speak to any of those reps. They will give you plenty more information than I can about a solution for your budget. And I think we are unfortunately out of time. Let's see. And what are you?
I think we are out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately we're out of time, guys. But my email address, my email address is in the slides, so I'm happy to help folks more offline. But this has been great. I hope it's been valuable for you. Let me know. We can continue the conversation. And again, I'm so grateful to Jennifer and her team and the New School for having me here.
Thank you so much, Salon, for joining us and guiding us through this highly informational session. And for everybody on the Facebook Live event, please check out the link. I'm going to ask Bridget to please share it for our following public events that are going to be coming up on Facebook Live today and all next week. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.